called How to Lose Everything. And its structure is basically my grief bio. Like cancer, amputation, a chapter about abortion, chapter about my divorce, chapters about my sons. And by the time I wrote the memoir, I was really ready to do it. I couldn't have written it any sooner. Those experiences had to be firmly in the past. I had to be able to look back at them. I think when you're grieving, when you're really actively in those early stages of grief, you're falling apart. You're falling in pieces. And the act of writing a book is literally putting pieces together. There's a beginning, a middle, and end. It has to make some sense. And so I couldn't have done that task of putting pieces together while I was still falling apart. And so it took time to get to the point where I was ready to do that. But it was also, I felt like I was still kind of scratching this itch that I had been through my music of telling my story. But by writing the book, I got to do that in a more complete way. And I really wanted to do it for two reasons. One, because sometimes people they're curious. People will look at me and they'll know I only have one leg and they'll think, oh, wow, you only have one leg. What's that like? They're curious about that. Or people will know I lost a child or lost two children and they'll say, oh my gosh, I can't imagine, how are you okay? And so I wanted to respond to those questions in a way that felt good to me. And because I'm an artist and I share things, I'm happy to do it, but it was a way that it was on my terms. And then I also wanted to offer something to other people who are going through grief or supporting someone in grief. There was many books and there was songs and there were so many things that I was supported by that this was a way of giving back and adding to what's out there. And, we all hope, we find the things that connect to us at a certain time. And now my book is one of the things out there that someone might encounter and it will connect. And this is my whole thing. Hopefully they'll feel less alone, and then I get to feel less alone. But people sometimes ask me if it was hard writing the book, and there were moments where if I was, writing a particular scene that was fairly emotional, that I would pause and have a cry maybe, but it wasn't like a traumatized cry. It was just being able to revisit the memory because I was at a point that I could. And again, I couldn't have, there's years that I could not have done that. It would have been hard for a long time. But I was also very clear about which parts of my story I was going to share. I think sometimes because the nature of my work is, it's personal and it's vulnerable and it's genuine, that people think I'm totally an open book and I'm just spilling it all out, and I'm not. Actually, it's very curated in that I'm editing and I'm very clear with myself about my boundaries of what I share and I make public. There's a lot of other loss even that is not in the book because it's not stuff I want to talk about publicly. And so I made sure going into it that I was clear on what I wanted to say, and I've had interviews over years where journalists have really pushed me, and I've ended up saying something I didn't want to say. And so again, it was on my terms, which I think is really important for all of us to be able to do, to tell our story ourselves and not have words put in our mouth or someone else tell it for us. And so that's what writing the book was like.